Chosen ones, March 30th. Your pain ends tonight. Witness the mighty movement of God in your life. 3 words have just been declared over your life, not whispered, declared, with an authority that pierces dimensions, reset, initiated. And when I say this, I am not using a pretty metaphor to make you feel good for a few minutes. I am telling you that at this exact moment as you hear my voice, every area of your life that was operating in error mode is being shut down, erased, and reinstalled from scratch. Finances, relationships, health, purpose, time, everything. Every configuration that produced pain, limitation, and repeated failure is being deleted. Not adjusted, not repaired, deleted. And if you felt a chill just now, if something inside your chest moved, it is because your spirit recognized the truth before your mind could process it. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what I am going to reveal to you is not just a message. It is the operating manual for what is happening inside you at this instant. I need to ask you a question before anything else, and I want you to answer honestly, even if the answer hurts. How many times in recent months have you looked at your life and thought, it shouldn't be like this? How many times have you woken up with that feeling that there is a version of your existence that works, that flows, that makes sense, but for some reason you cannot access it? It is as if you knew, deep down, that you were designed for something greater. But every time you try to move forward, the system freezes. The door opens and closes in your face. Money comes in and drains away before fulfilling any purpose. The relationship begins with promise and ends with destruction. Health fluctuates without explanation, and you stand there, in the middle of the chaos, wondering, what is wrong with me? I am going to tell you what is wrong. But the answer will shock you because the error is not in you. The error is in the programming that was installed over you. And that is the difference that changes absolutely everything. Imagine that your life is an operating system. You were born with an original design, perfect, configured by the Creator himself. Every circuit was designed to operate in fullness. Your finances were designed for abundance. Your relationships were designed for genuine connection. Your health was designed for vitality. Your purpose was designed for total clarity. And the time of your life was calibrated for divine efficiency, each thing happening at the exact moment. That was the original system. That was the project. But at some point, someone accessed your control panel without your permission and altered the settings. They installed limitations where there should have been expansion. They inserted fear where there should have been confidence. They programmed scarcity where there should have been provision. They encoded rejection where there should have been belonging. And from that moment on, you began to operate below your design, not because you were incapable, but because the system was corrupted. And do you know what is most cruel? You didn't even realize you were running tampered software because the corruption was so deep that it became your normality. You grew up believing that life is difficult by nature, that money is scarce by definition, that healthy relationships are the exception, that pain is inevitable, and these beliefs are not universal truths. They are bugs in your system. They are corrupted lines of code that someone implanted to ensure you would never operate at the level for which you were designed. Researchers from the Department of Behavioral Neuroscience at UNIFESP demonstrated something that confirms exactly this reality. In studies on repetitive behavior patterns in adults over 35 years old, they identified that up to 70% of a person's daily decisions are guided by unconscious programming, formed before the age of 7. Before the age of 7. This means that most of what you believe about money, about love, about your value, and about what is possible for your life was installed at a stage when you lacked the critical capacity to question it. You absorbed it, you accepted it, and you ran this program for decades thinking it was your original system. But it wasn't. It was the corrupted version, and it is this version that is being uninstalled now. Subscribe to this channel and activate the notification bell, because what I am going to explain to you in the next few minutes is the exact process of what is happening inside you, and if you miss this sequence, you will continue to interpret the signs incorrectly. Subscribe now and stay with me. Now I need to take you inside something that will require you to open your mind. Because what is happening to you at this moment has a spiritual correspondence so precise that it cannot be a coincidence. In the Hebrew tradition, there is a concept called tikkun. Tikkun means restoration, repair, realignment to the original state. But it is not just any kind of repair. Tikkun is the correction of that which was diverted from its primordial purpose. The Hebrew masters taught that every soul is born with a perfect configuration, a specific alignment between purpose, gifts, and destiny. But throughout life, external influences, traumas, toxic environments, destructive words, and generational cycles misalign this configuration until the person operates so far from the original that they no longer recognize who they are. Tikkun is the moment when God intervenes and says, "Enough. The distortion has reached its limit. I will restore what was corrupted." And here is the point I want you to record. Tikkun is not gradual. It is not a process of years of slow spiritual therapy. Tikkun, when God initiates it, is abrupt. It is radical. It is total. It is like the reset of a machine. The screen goes dark. Everything stops. And when the system turns on again, it is a completely different version. Have you wondered why in the last few days or weeks everything seems to have stopped? That feeling of stagnation, that emptiness, that momentary darkness in which nothing seems to work, nothing makes sense and nothing moves. You interpreted this as abandonment, as proof that God forgot you. But I need to tell you that this darkness is not an error. This darkness is the black screen of the reboot. It is the moment between the old system being shut down and the new system being loaded. And in that moment, nothing works indeed. It shouldn't work. Because what was working before was the corrupted program, and God will not let you operate one more day in that version. It is over. The screen went dark, and the new is being loaded now. Think about what happened to Paul. The Apostle Paul, before he was Paul, was Saul of Tarsus. And Saul was not a broken man seeking God. Saul was a functional man, successful, respected, operating with maximum efficiency within the system he knew. He had an elite education, studied at the feet of Gamaliel, the greatest master of his generation. He had a position of authority. He had a clear purpose, at least that is what he believed. From the outside, Saul was the definition of a life that works. But his system was corrupted. His programming was wrong. He persecuted exactly what he should have embraced. He attacked exactly what he should have defended. He destroyed exactly what he should have built, and he didn't know it. Because when the system is corrupted, corruption feels like normality. And then came the reset. On the road to Damascus, a light stronger than the sun knocked Saul off his horse, and he went blind. The screen went dark. The old system shut down. And for 3 days, Saul saw nothing, ate nothing, drank nothing. 3 days of total darkness. 3 days in which everything he knew, everything he believed, everything he was erased, not corrected, erased. And when his sight returned, when the system restarted, the one who opened his eyes was no longer Saul. It was Paul. Same body, same intelligence, same energy. But a completely different programming. The purpose that was once to destroy was now to build. The strength that was once used against the truth was now used in favor of it. The man was the same, but the operating system was another. This is what is happening to you. You are the same person, but the system that governed your life is being replaced. The finances that operated in scarcity mode are receiving a new protocol of abundance. The relationships that ran on a program of dysfunction are being reinstalled with parameters of divine connection. The health that functioned under restrictions is receiving configurations of supernatural restoration. The purpose that operated in confused mode is being loaded with absolute clarity. And time. That feeling that you are always late, always waiting, always chasing after what should have already arrived, is being recalibrated for divine acceleration. Everything at the same time. Everything now. Like this video. If what you are hearing is resonating with something inside you, if you recognize the pattern I'm describing in your own life, leave your like now. Because this gesture is not symbolic. Every like makes this message reach someone who is in the middle of the reboot without knowing what is happening, interpreting the darkness as the end when in fact it is the beginning. But I need to be brutally honest with you about something. And this is the part that most people do not want to hear. The reset is real, but there is an enemy who knows it. and this enemy will not sit by passively while your system is reinstalled. In the coming days, possibly in the coming hours, situations will arise in your life that will seem to prove that nothing has changed. An unexpected bill, a fight that apparently arises out of nowhere, news that destabilizes you, a thought that invades your mind in the middle of the night, saying that all of this is an illusion, that you are deceiving yourself, that tomorrow will be just like yesterday. I need you to understand something with the clarity of someone who has seen this pattern repeat thousands of times. This reaction is not proof that the reset failed. It is proof that the reset worked. Read it again. The reaction is proof that it worked. The enemy does not attack what represents no threat. He does not waste ammunition on corrupted systems that already operate in his favor. He attacks when he perceives that the system is being reinstalled with the original version, when he perceives that the programming of fear is being replaced by faith. That scarcity is giving way to provision. That confusion is yielding to clarity. It is at that moment that he acts, and his action is predictable, to create external circumstances of chaos to make you doubt the internal change. Data from the Institute of Psychology at USP on behavioral change processes in adults show that there is a phenomenon called resistance to reprogramming. When a person begins a process of profound transformation, whether therapeutic, spiritual, or behavioral, the first weeks are marked by a paradoxical increase in difficulties, not because the person is regressing, but because the old pattern is fighting to survive. It is like a virus that realizes the antivirus has been installed and launches one last massive attack before being eliminated. Researchers documented that individuals who understand this mechanism have a success rate in maintaining change 4 times higher than those who do not understand it. 4 times. The difference between remaining in the transformation and returning to the old pattern is in large part knowing that the counterattack is part of the process. So when the next few hours bring turbulence, and I tell you they probably will, you will not tremble. Not because you are strong on your own, but because now you know what is happening. Now you have the map. And he who has the map does not get lost in the terrain. Write in the comments now the word reset. Write it as a declaration that you recognize what is happening and position yourself in favor of the process, not against it. When you declare it in writing, you activate something in the spiritual. You transform understanding into authority. And authority is the weapon the enemy cannot combat. Now I want to take you to a layer that will explain why your suffering was so specific. Because it wasn't a generic pain, was it? It wasn't a vague malaise. It was precise. It was surgical. Every area that hurt the most was exactly the area where your original design was most powerful. And that is not a coincidence. It is the enemy's strategy. Think with me. If you wanted to neutralize a weapon, you wouldn't attack the harmless parts. You would attack the firing mechanism. If you wanted to bring down a building, you wouldn't attack the windows. You would attack the foundations. The enemy knows where your greatest potential lies, and that is exactly where he concentrates the attack. If your finances were the most devastated area, it is because in your original design, you were configured for a financial influence that threatens the system of scarcity that the enemy maintains over millions of lives. If your relationships were the most destroyed area, it is because in your original design, you were made to build connections so powerful they would destabilize entire networks of isolation and dysfunction. If your health was attacked, it is because your body operating in fullness would be such an effective tool in the hands of God that the enemy preferred to knock you down physically rather than face what you would do standing up. Data from the Getulio Vargas Foundation, FGV, on the entrepreneurial profile in Brazil show that among people over 35 who report having faced deep crises in multiple areas of life simultaneously, more than 55% demonstrate high indicators of leadership, creativity, and capacity for social influence. More than half. This means that the profile of those who suffer most intensely is, statistically, the profile of those who have the most potential for impact. Suffering is not random. It is proportional to the threat you represent to the system that profits from your limitation. And that is exactly why the reset could not be partial. It wasn't enough to adjust one setting here and correct another there. The corruption was systemic. Every area was compromised. Every protocol was tampered with. The only possible solution was a complete reinstallation, erase everything, shut down, and reinstall from scratch with the original code, the code God wrote when He designed you before the foundation of the world. Activate the notification bell now, because in the next video, I will detail each of the new configurations being installed in your life. I will show you how the protocols of abundance work, how the systems of divine connection operate, and how the acceleration of spiritual time works. You cannot miss this message. Now I need to tell you about something that is perhaps the most impactful revelation of this video, and I confess I hesitated to include it, because the depth of what I am about to say requires a spiritual maturity that not everyone possesses. But I feel in my spirit that you are ready, so pay attention. The prophet Ezekiel was taken in spirit to a valley full of dry bones. The vision is terrifying. Imagine an entire valley covered in bones, not bodies, bones. Life had been gone for so long that not even flesh remained. Only the structure, only the skeleton of what was once alive. And God asked Ezekiel, can these bones live? The question itself is devastating, because God was not asking for an opinion. He was testing Ezekiel's faith in the face of the impossible, and Ezekiel, in an act of rare wisdom, replied, Lord, you know. He didn't say yes because the visual evidence said no. He didn't say no because he knew God does not ask rhetorical questions. He said, you know. And that answer was enough to trigger what came next. God commanded Ezekiel to prophesy over the bones, and while Ezekiel spoke, there was a noise, a rattling. The bones began to move, to come together, bone to bone. Then came the tendons, then the flesh, then the skin, and finally, the breath of life. The entire valley was transformed from a cemetery into an army. I want you to understand the magnitude of what you just heard. God did not reanimate bodies that had just died. He reinstalled life into bones that had been dry for an indeterminate time. It was not a reanimation. It was a reinstallation, a complete reset. From the most absolute death to the most full life. And the process followed an order. First the structure, bone to bone, then the connection systems, tendons, then the covering, flesh and skin, and lastly, the breath, the final activation. And this is exactly the order of what is happening in your life now. First, God is reorganizing your structure. The foundations of your identity, the pillars of what you believe about yourself, are being realigned. You feel this as confusion, as questioning, as that feeling of no longer knowing who you are. But it is not an identity crisis. It is an identity reconstruction, bone joining bone. Then come the tendons, the new connections. People entering your life who seem strange at first. Opportunities that do not fit the old pattern, thoughts you never had before. These are the tendons of the new system, connecting the parts that were previously scattered. Then comes the flesh, the substance, the external visibility of what was reconstructed inside. That is when others begin to notice that something has changed in you. They cannot explain it, but they see it. And lastly comes the breath, the final activation. The moment when everything that was reinstalled begins to operate in real time. You are at some point in this process now. Perhaps you are in the bone phase, in the deep reconstruction of your identity. Perhaps you are already in the tendons, feeling new connections forming. Perhaps you are already in the flesh, beginning to manifest on the outside what was done on the inside. But the phase does not matter. What matters is that the process is irreversible. Once God initiates the tikkun, once the reset is activated, there is no force in the universe capable of reversing the protocol. None. The enemy may try to create interference. He may launch chaos in the coming hours. He may use people close to you to sow doubt. But the protection barrier has already been activated. The original code is already being loaded. And what God reinstalls, no virus corrupts again. In the Hebrew language, the verb shub appears more than 1,000 times in the Old Testament. Shub means to return, to restore, to bring back to the original state. But the ancient rabbis taught that shub is not just a return to the beginning, it is an improved return. It is as if the reinstalled system returns with all the updates that the experience of pain provided. You do not go back to being who you were before the corruption. You come back better, stronger, wiser, deeper. Because every scar that pain left is transformed into a protection code in the new system. Every processed trauma becomes a firewall against future attacks. Every tear shed is transformed into data of wisdom that the old system did not possess. Suffering was not wasted. It was converted into an update. I want this to sink into your spirit. Nothing of what you lived was in vain. Nothing. That night when you cried until you had no more tears, it was an update being installed in your resilience. That job you lost, it was a corrupted file being deleted from your future. That relationship that destroyed you inside, it was a malicious program being identified and removed from your emotional system. That illness that knocked you down, it was the body being forced to stop so that the reset could happen without the interference of your own stubbornness. Everything, absolutely everything, was part of the reinstallation protocol. Share this video now. Send it to that person who is in the middle of the dark screen, in the middle of the reboot, thinking everything is over. Send it to someone who lost their job this month, to someone who received a frightening diagnosis, to someone who is at rock bottom without understanding why. This message could be the moment the person stops fighting the process and starts collaborating with it. I need now to talk about the new configurations being loaded, because the reset is not just the removal of the old, it is the installation of the new. And the new that God is installing in your life is infinitely superior to anything you have ever operated. The first configuration is redefined financial abundance. I am not talking about wealth as the world defines it, accumulation for accumulation's sake. I am talking about a financial flow that operates in sync with your purpose, where before money arrived and drained away without meaning, now it will arrive with direction, with purpose, with intelligent multiplication. Datafolha surveys on the financial profile of Brazilians show that 8 out of 10 adults over 35 feel they work hard and earn little, that there is a disconnection between the effort they employ and the return they receive. This disconnection is not laziness. It is not a lack of competence. It is the old configuration running a scarcity protocol that limited the return regardless of the effort. The new protocol operates differently. It aligns effort with purpose and releases provision proportional to the calling. The second configuration is restored relational connection. The relationships that are to come will not follow the pattern of the previous ones. You will no longer attract people who drain you. You will no longer connect out of neediness. You will no longer confuse presence with belonging. The new system filters. It recognizes frequencies compatible with your original design and naturally repels incompatible frequencies. This is not arrogance. It is protection. It is the system operating as it was designed to operate. The third configuration is recalibrated health. The body that carried the weight of corrupt programming will begin to respond in ways that will surprise you. Chronic pains that seemed permanent will diminish. An energy that for months, perhaps years, was absent will begin to return. Sleep that was restless will become restorative, because the physical body responds to spiritual programming. When the internal system changes, the external body aligns. The fourth configuration is clarity of purpose. That feeling of being lost, of not knowing which path to take, of spinning in circles, is being replaced by an internal compass that points in an unequivocal direction. It doesn't mean all answers will come at once. It means the next step will always be visible, and when the next step is visible, the entire journey becomes possible. And the fifth configuration, perhaps the most powerful, is temporal acceleration. You felt that the last few years were stolen, that time passed and you stood still, that opportunities that should have been yours went to others. But the God who is reinstalling your system is the same God who said through the prophet Joel, "I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten." Restore years, not days, years. What would take a decade to build in the old system will materialize in months in the new system. Not because you will work harder, but because the acceleration protocol eliminates the locks that held back progress. Now pay attention to this detail, because it separates those who understand from those who only hear. The reset is happening now, not tomorrow, not when circumstances improve. Now, at this exact second. But the reset has a condition, not a condition of merit, because you do not need to deserve what God decided to give. It is a condition of positioning. You need to align yourself with the process instead of resisting it. And resisting, most of the time, happens unconsciously. It is when you receive good news and immediately think, when is the other shoe going to drop? When a door opens and you hesitate to enter, because all previous doors closed in your face. When someone extends a hand and you recoil because previous hands hurt you. Researchers from PUC Rio, who study self-sabotage patterns in Brazilian adults, identified that the most common form of resistance to positive change is not the conscious rejection of change, but the silent disbelief that change is real. The person wants to believe, desires to believe, but a part of the old system, not yet completely uninstalled, whispers that it is too good to be true. And that whisper, if not identified and silenced, can delay the process. Not cancel it, because God's tikkun is irreversible, but delay it. And you have already lost too much time. Every extra day in the old system is a day stolen from the new system. So I am going to ask you for something now. Not as a magic formula, but as an act of spiritual alignment. I want you to declare, out loud if possible, or in the comments if you are in public, I receive the reset. I let go of the old system. I stop resisting what God is installing in my life. This is not a motivational exercise, it is spiritual positioning. It is the difference between being dragged by the current and swimming in the direction of the river. The Bible says that Lazarus had been dead for 4 days when Jesus arrived. 4 days. In the Jewish culture of the time, it was believed that the spirit remained near the body for 3 days after death, but on the 4th day, the separation was considered definitive, irreversible. When Jesus arrived on the 4th day, the message was clear: I do not operate within the limits of what you consider possible. Martha, Lazarus' sister, said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And shortly after she added, but he already smells. It is the 4th day. It was the voice of the old system saying it was already too late, that decomposition had begun, that the process was irreversible by all known natural laws. And Jesus, in the face of all this evidence, said only 2 words, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out. Listen to what I am telling you. If there are areas in your life that you consider dead, definitively dead, areas that are already on the 4th day, that already smell, that have already been abandoned by everyone as lost cases, Jesus is standing before those areas now and is saying, come out. Come out of death, come out of paralysis, come out of scarcity, come out of illness, come out of confusion. The reset does not respect human deadlines. It does not respect medical diagnoses. It does not respect financial forecasts. It does not respect the opinion of those who have already given you up as a closed case. The reset respects a single authority, the voice of the Creator saying it is done. And it is done. Your pain, this specific pain that accompanied you until here, that stole nights, that dried tears, that tightened your chest, that paralyzed dreams, ends today. Not gradually, not partially, today. Because the system that generated that pain is being erased, deleted, replaced. And in its place, a system is being installed that generates peace where there was panic, abundance where there was scarcity, purpose where there was confusion, health where there was deterioration, and time where there was delay. You are not a lost case. You are a system in reinstallation. The dark screen is not the end, it is the reboot. The dry bones are not permanent death. They are the raw material of resurrection. The 4th day is not too late. It is the perfect setting for the impossible. The reset has been initiated. The protocols are being loaded. The protection barrier is active. And the voice that declared over your life will not stop until every configuration is complete, every system is operating, and every part of your being is functioning at the level for which you were originally designed. Congratulations, because it is done, not tomorrow, now. And you will never again, hear me well, never again operate in the old system. The code has been rewritten, the programming has been corrected, and the original designer has retaken control. Comment now the word reset and write what you felt while listening to this message. I read every comment, every line, because your testimonies are not just words on a screen. They are spiritual records of a people being reinstalled in real time. And in the next video, I will reveal to you how to identify the first signs that the new system is already operating in your daily life, the practical markers that confirm the reset has been concluded. I guarantee you, what comes next will confirm everything you heard today.